Hi, I'm Stellian, creator of Am I the Problem? The Oracle play deck that's currently on Kickstarter. And if you're watching this video before the 1st of January, you can join the Kickstarter campaign, get your copy of the deck, and help us unlock one additional category of 10 cards. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the social problems or the purple cards and what they represent, starting with the first one, which is awakening. If you have experienced your spiritual awakening, you understand that life cannot go on the same way because you're seeing the world in a different way. You're starting to see the world in a different way, including your connections to people, including your presence on earth. So, the experience of your spiritual awakening might feel like it's an individual thing, that it's happening just at the level of your individuality, that it's affecting just your life, but it actually has a social impact because you will no longer show up in the world in the same way. And therefore, people around you are going to sense that you're experiencing the changes happening as part of the awakening. If this card appears on your reading, on your path, it's a call for you to examine how are you doing life at the moment? What are your habits? What are you paying attention to? What are your priorities? What are your values? Are you living in alignment with them? Also, are they still important to you? The things that you've been carrying as priorities for many years. When we begin to awaken, we start to shift our priorities because we understand that we can do things in a better way, that there is more meaning in life, especially when we learn how to pay attention to that which is important to us, truly important to our authentic self. And we begin to experience this pull towards our North Star, our purpose in life. And so, what we're doing might no longer give us the same joy, the same excitement, anticipation, and therefore, this card might signify that you're at the pivotal time in your life when you're ready to welcome new changes and to welcome the transformation that's going to allow you to embody more of your higher self and align with more of your purpose. If this card is showing up, equally, it might signify that somebody around you is experiencing their spiritual awakening. So they might be a little bit more socially withdrawn. They might start to ask questions that they never asked before. They might start to set stronger boundaries because a part of their soul is being brought back to them. And it's their unique responsibility to manage that relationship with self and with their soul. The negative aspects of this card, although I don't quite think of the awakening as something that brings negative consequences, I think anything that awakens us to the truth, anything that reminds us of our inner light, is always positive. But of course, the more negative interpretations of this card is that you might experience abrupt changes and you should be prepared for those changes. Certain things might be taken away from you, certain people might be taken away from you for precisely the reasons I mentioned earlier, because it's not time for them to experience the awakening, or they're just not aligned with where you need to go next. Vice versa. If you're doing a type of investigation about somebody else and you understand that they're experiencing their awakening, it might signify that your paths are going in different direction and it's time for you to let them go because they're on a mission to recollect some of the missing puzzle pieces that are going to allow them to bring to life their unique vision for life. This is one of the reasons I've included the awakening card into the social problems, because when one person starts to awaken, it has a ripple effect on all the people in their life. And the closer the people to the person that's awakening, the more they're going to feel the shifts and the more they're going to experience some of those changes for themselves. Especially if this person that's awakening is experiencing some of their gifts, the activation of some of their gifts, they might start to channel ideas or prophecies, or they might give you guidance and advice that they previously were not able to conceive of. And it might feel like it's coming out of nowhere, but it's actually coming from their own higher self. And equally, they might awaken something in you that you didn't know that you were capable of, such as one of the clear gifts. Clairaudience, clairvoyance, you might start to hear things or see things as part of the activation of your gifts and part of your own soul blueprint remembrance. Again, this is related to the identity as well. So the first card of any sequence of 10 cards, it's always related to the identity. It's a social card because it has social implications, but it also relates to one's identity. And whether you're doing an examination for your own identity or other people's identity, it's important to honor that some of the changes that are happening might not be social changes in terms of how they're being communicated, that you might need to take some time away from society, or other people might need to take some time away from society as part of their awakening journey. Card number two is the Stalker, which is a quite a nice gradual shift from taking away some time and then people wanting to invade your space. The Stalker, as the second card, is more connected to number two, which is resources, which is material possessions, values, and kind of like people examining what you got going on, especially in the physical realm. The Stalker card might signify that somebody is overly attached to you and somebody is kind of, they started as a fan, they started as admiring you, and now they've become a full blown stalker because everything that you do to them has become entertainment. It has become a guiding principle, guiding light. You're kind of the standard, you're the role model. And in the more twisted interpretation of this card, they are so attached to you that they feel that they can play out the trauma that they experience with you. And so you removing yourself and you moving at a distance means that you're not giving them the access that they once had or that they crave in order for them to be able to do that. And therefore, they're coming with the energy of wanting to control you and your life because they feel like they lack control in their own life. The Stalker card has a lot of negative connotations. It has a lot of negative interpretations, and you should be wary, especially if it comes in a message in a reading that's examining you and many other people. And so the card Stalker signifies that somebody is overly obsessed with you. I think stalkers should not be underestimated because they're not necessarily present for themselves, for their own journey, and they're overly obsessed with other people as a way to protect their own identity. They don't want to think about their identity, so they're projecting and they're trying to make sense of other people's identities and they're trying to bring their influence on other people in order for them to never have to look at themselves. So there is a lot of denial, there's a lot of rejection, a lot of projections that are happening in the head of a stalker, whether you get a complimentary card that says that they're a sociopath, a psycho, a shapeshifter, or somebody that's a little bit of a bringing some of that mirroring energy, that they want to copy everything that you do, but in reality, they're just a stalker. They're not quite like you. They've just observed you enough to pretend they're like you. If this card relates to your journey, it is a call for you to examine who have you been obsessing over. And I think with the rise of social media, it's quite easy to fall into the trap of wanting to refresh the pages of our favorite creators, our favorite celebrities, and even friends and family. Some of them are quite funny, some of them post some meaningful stuff, but we kind of get too attached to them. And so that becomes a little bit of a coping mechanism or a little bit of a habit that's not the most positive habit in the long run because it leads to that stalking, to that obsession. The Stalker card is a call for action. Whether you need to set stronger boundaries, whether you need to ask some tough questions to yourself and to other people, and also a call for you to examine your own tendencies. Are you the stalker in the situation? Are you the problem? Or is somebody who is a stalker in the background causing problems in your life? Because if you do have a stalker, you're going to feel that energy at some point. People don't realize that they're always carrying energy. And when you're stalking someone, you're directing your energy towards them. Therefore, you're going to feel and sense energy that is being directed to you, energy that is a little bit weird. And that is going to inevitably bring your attention to this person, even if they're hiding, even if they don't want to be known as the stalker in your life. Card number three is the Avoidant card. This is in alignment with communication. So, avoidant people like to avoid facing the truth, facing themselves, engaging meaningfully in connections, because meaningful interactions involve depth. The avoidant likes to keep things to the surface. But if you are having a long term relationship or connection with someone, friendship, inevitably there's going to come a point where you're going to want to ask some bigger questions. You're going to want to get to the heart of some really important issues or opinions or ideas that are going to involve some of that depth. The avoidant is going to always want to bring the situation to the surface because they cannot handle the depth. The depth means facing a lot of repressed emotions, a lot of repressed trauma. And if you're dealing with an avoidant, you're dealing with somebody that does not care enough to face themselves, and therefore they're not going to be able to face you in the way that you need them to. Avoidant people like to shift environments a lot, they like to shift friendships a lot, or they like to be like the social chameleon that sometimes appears, sometimes disappears. They like to be part of a large group where their unique story does not matter that much because they like to go through life at the surface level most of the time. Every now and then you do have some mentally unstable avoidance that like to create trauma bonding scenarios where they get you hooked, but they don't give you anything in advance. They play with you. They give you the hot and cold as a way for them to control the situation, to manipulate you, and to make you feel like they're more emotionally available than they actually are. But at the level of their self-expression and identity, they haven't done the work to be able to truly express who they are because on some level they don't even know who they are. And if you're the avoidant in the situation, if you feel like you are the problem in the situation, it's a call for you to remove the hoodie, remove the masks, and examine how you're showing up in relationships and friendships. It's a call for you to be a little bit more vulnerable and to allow yourself to be seen, to allow yourself to connect with people that genuinely want to hold space for you because not everybody wants to hold space for you, especially if you've been around a lot of people that thrive in the pack mentality. They're used to the enablers, and avoidance can be great enablers. They just show up and they go with the flow as it is. They don't try to challenge the system. They don't try to challenge people and question them and hold them accountable. So, if you're the avoidant one, this is a chance for you to take more accountability when it comes to your own presentation and how you show up in the world. Card number 4 is the immature card, and obviously we're dealing with the subconscious mind here a little bit more with the belief system, and we have somebody who is stuck at the arrested development, quite possibly due to trauma, quite possibly because they grew up in an environment that didn't allow them to build their own identity. And in the process, they kind of locked the door that would take them to the next versions of themselves. They've blocked themselves in the hallway as it is between the past and the future. But in the present moment, they're just circling around the same familiar grounds. And it's comfortable. I think they've created a trap for themselves where they don't have to face anything other than just this trap that they've customized for themselves. But if you befriend somebody that's immature, you're going to block your own growth. They're going to bring you with them to that hallway that goes nowhere. It doesn't even venture in other rooms. Or maybe they have one or two rooms open in their household, the household of their psyche, of their subconscious mind, when in reality there is a whole wide world full of so many doors and hallways and connections and playgrounds, and they don't feel safe enough to go out and explore in order for them to grow. And again, this might come from childhood experiences where they weren't allowed to grow. Their growth was punished, it was questioned, it was judged. So immature dealing with immature people brings a lot of mixed emotions because on the one hand you want to help them, but on the other hand you understand that you cannot really, because it's their choice. They have to choose to mature themselves, they have to choose to be brave and open these doors to transformation and go through them. If you have been immature in some situations, it's really a reminder to explore. Why do you always feel the need to crack a joke when the situation becomes a little bit more serious, a little bit more uncomfortable? What is it as part of your experiences that have brought this to the surface? This is the coping mechanism I need to use when X, Y, and Z happens. I tell a joke. And I've seen that with grown adults, men and women in their 50s. When the situation involves a conversation, a discussion about something that is a specifically triggering point to them, they always tell a joke. And it lightens up the mood, but it also distracts. It distracts from some sort of inadequacy that they're feeling. So if you have these topics and themes that bring up these emotions that you're inadequate or thought patterns, it's a goal for you to examine where is this coming from and how can you improve that? How can you create a new pathway so that you can unblock the flow and allow yourself to evolve? And usually, immature tendencies are going to become a little bit more visible when you're around people. They're going to illuminate that for you. And if somebody calls you an immature person, that might be, the universe telling you this is where you need to do a little bit more of the inner work. Card number 5, emotional baggage. 5 is usually the pivotal moment from education to higher education, a little bit more, and it involves a little bit more play as well. So, if you are carrying that immaturity with you your whole life, you're also carrying a lot of emotional baggage, and you might be entertaining to other people until they get to know you and they realize, oh, this person is putting up a front. In fact, they're quite serious, they're quite heavy, they're quite affected by what happened to them, and they just haven't worked through their emotions, through their thought patterns, through their coping mechanisms. If you're dealing with someone that has a lot of emotional baggage and they're uninterested in putting the box down, they're going to give you that baggage and they're going to make you work when it comes to processing what that baggage means so that you can extract the lessons and give them the wisdom that they need to extract themselves. And I've also seen and experienced firsthand what happens when you do the emotional work for somebody else. They burden you, you get overburdened, you lighten up the mood for them, their life abundance increases because you're unblocking their flow, you're doing the work on their behalf, and then they go out into the world and they present themselves to be this educated, enlightened being. Wow, they've burdened you, and now they're creating rumors that you're that friend that's so annoying and you're always so serious, even though they've burdened you with their emotional baggage for you to do the extra work. So in a way, people with emotional baggage, especially if you're sensitive enough, if you're naive enough, if you're kind enough to accept it, they're going to burden you and kind of create a karmic swap. So instead of them facing their issues and growing as a result, taking responsibility, accountability, they, give other people the assignment to do that work on their behalf and they burden them and they block your flow, they block your opportunities. Because instead of you building your own ideas, developing your own ideas, you're spending days and weeks and months thinking about why Sally said something to Sam and how can Sam improve the situations? How can Sam respond to Sally? When in reality, it was always Sam's responsibility to think for themselves, to do the emotional work necessary for them to show up as themselves and to make their own mistakes. So, if you're dealing with someone with emotional baggage, do not do the work for them. Do not do the emotional work. Don't even listen to them at some point. After, a while, when you realize that you're dealing with someone like that, they're only going to burden you and they're not really serious about changing their ways. And in fact, this is just the first box. They have a whole storage room full of boxes. And if this is a call for you to put down the box, open it, examine it, integrate things, you know what to do. One memory at a time, one lesson at a time, one extracted piece of wisdom. That's how you grow. Card number 6, it's the insecure card. This is where we reach the level of self growth. So, 4, 5, 6, you understand the steps now. A lot of people get stuck in their immaturity because they don't want to do the work. And then they bring this emotional immaturity to other people through that emotional baggage. But deep down, they're insecure because they haven't done the work, because they haven't taken ownership of their life, ownership of their lessons. And so inevitably they remain insecure and they can fool people for a certain amount of time, but in the end, they're going to remain insecure. And every now and then, they're also going to present themselves as the 7 card, which is the fixer. So instead of fixing their own issues, doing the inner work on their behalf, they're going to go out into the world and start fixing other people's issues while still carrying their own boxes of emotional garbaggio, emotional weight, emotional burdens, emotional baggage. The fixer card presents themselves as very sensitive, as very understanding, very caring, but deep down, they're repressing a lot of their own emotions and thought patterns and habits. And they just want to buy your love by fixing something for you. They just want to earn that access to you. They want to be seen as somebody in order for other people to not pay attention to who they really are or to what's inside of them that is part of their identity that they're unhappy about or they don't want to deal with. So be wary around fixers, be wary around insecure people. Card number 7, again, this is the biggest social alignment because 7 is the number for partnerships, connections, and kind of that social life. Number 8, we've got the drama queen, and 8 is the number of transformation. This is where a person is continuously evolving and allowing for these big events to happen in their life. The drama queen is so used to being in control of the situation. She will control how life operates for other people as well. And she would hold space for the trauma and the drama of other people as a way to block them from their growth, from their evolution. Again, if you're dealing with a drama queen, you're not going to progress further in life. This is a archetype that deals with gossip as well. So it's important for you to set stronger boundaries and maintain your distance from any drama queens that you can recognize. They may be entertaining at first, but I promise you, life is going to get really messy if you allow them to have access to you. Number 9 is the stubborn archetype. A person that is quite ambitious can be very stubborn when it comes to pursuing their goals. But they can also be very stubborn when it comes to their belief system. And so they might try to persuade you that their belief system is better than yours, especially if they have a fixed mindset around certain aspects of their identity. Number 9 is the higher meaning, it's the higher purpose and the higher perspective. Stubborn people, especially when they haven't matured their psyche, they're willing to fight in order for them to defend their worldview because their identity is based on that worldview. And even if it's false, even if it's faulty, they're so stubborn in their ways. So, the positive interpretation, this is somebody who's willing to fight for their goals and make it happen big time in life. The negative interpretation, they're not going to be able to see the whole picture because they're so focused on their worldview. And if you're dealing with somebody that's stubborn, you got to ask the question, is this a waste of my time to try and have conversations with this person if they're so set in their ways? Especially if they're an archetype that lives within the fixed mindset, it might be a waste of time. And they might, view you as the problem because you're bringing different points of view that they don't agree with. But ultimately, pick your battles and pick your friends carefully. The 10th card is the blame shifter. And this is the final card of the social problems. The blame shifter is usually somebody that has accomplished success in a particular industry, in a particular domain, because they're so good at playing a persona, playing a character. And in our world, loves narcissistic patterns. It loves people that can create the manipulation that allows other to be entertained, that allows some people to take participation. But you got to ask yourself, is this person blaming other people for something in order to direct how others are being viewed because they don't want to take accountability? And you can see that in their religious backgrounds and the religious systems. You have people that are blaming it's music, it corrupted the youth, it's culture, it corrupted the youth, but they don't take accountability for being so divisive and for being so off-putting to new people because they want to bring that tradition so much. They're not opening themselves to the new ways of the world, and they're not opening themselves to true communication and through connection. Again, this is a social problem because if you want to be part of the system where a blame shifter thrives, you're going to have to need to sacrifice your own choices, worldviews, and ways of doing things. And if you're doing things in a new way and you're dealing with the shapeshifter, that is also a blame shifter, forget about your way of doing things, forget about your authenticity. Blame shifters are part of the problem in a societal conversation because they don't want to accept the ways of the youth, the new ways of doing things, the ways of the new art in some ways. And these are the 10 social problems. Next, I'm going to be examining the material problems and the yellow cards. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment with your favorite card, and I hope to see you in the next one.